So glad to be with you here today. Seneca and Dave and I, we do go back quite a ways. Probably better than 25 years. The ministry, just doing things together, enjoying just our relationship with us together. And it's my privilege to be here this morning to share with you. And it was my privilege to get some time with some of your men yesterday and to enjoy some time shooting out in Interlaken, what do you call it? Interlaken. I guess the Swiss would call it Interlaken. But, and to enjoy some time there, gentlemen, thank you so much for making me feel welcome. And for those of you this morning that are officials to me, so nice to get to see you and to meet you also. Well, let me continue on in the series that Dave has begun to work with you in, dealing with the issues of freedom. We do have so many choices. We have so many choices as believers, and we are not in Christ bound to sin, but we are free to live a life that pleases Him. And in that freedom, there are a lot of decisions to be made. And Dave has been working with you and walking you through a number of those decisions. And this morning, I get to talk with you about the decision of whether or not it's important for you to go to church. And so, there are a surprising number of conversations that surround this particular issue. And when the question comes up, do I have to go to church? No one's quite sure how to respond to that. Now, let me just be honest with you. I think pastors pretty much have an idea of how to respond to that. Because I don't know of any pastor that's going to say, hey, I need to go to church. Because we enjoy seeing your bright and happy and smiling faces each and every Sunday morning. But when the discussion happens, the question is, well, what is the answer? What do we do with that? And how do we handle that? And so the issue and the question gets thrown around is what is going on with the issue of church attendance these days? And it just seems that people are attending less and less often. And the people that you might be used to seeing on a Sunday morning, you're not seeing every Sunday morning. You're only seeing them there once every couple of weeks or once every third week. And you may be scratching your head, what's happening with that? What's the issue here? Now, I was looking around for some information to kind of bring you in, and I got some pictures that just speak a little bit to the whole idea of where people are going with attending church today. How many of you are familiar with the most interesting man in the world? Do you know who that guy is? He's kind of that weird fellow. He kind of looks a little bit like you, sir. But there's this Facebook little prompt up there, and it should come up on the screen. There he is. He says, I don't always go to church, but when I do, I make sure I check in on Facebook. How many of you got there today and you checked in on Facebook? You let people know, hey, I'm at Seneca Community Church this morning, and I am like super proud and being loud to let them know that I'm here today. Yeah, he's all about checking in and being at church on Facebook. Also, our most interesting man, for some of you who might be a little more traditional. Now, we didn't have this morning, and in the church that I'm from, we don't have this. We don't have the Oregon postlude. But I do not always go to church. But when I do, I stay for the Oregon postlude. Why do you come to church? Why do you come to church? What's important about church and how you do church that gets you here each and every Sunday morning? Is it the ability to check in and let your friends know, hey, guess what? Send you to church. Or is it, you know what? Can't wait for that organ to play, can't wait for that music to play, can't wait to hear the drums, can't wait to shake hands with my friends, have a good cup of coffee, or whatever the snack is after the service. What brings you to church? What brings you to church? Well, some struggle with when the service is. Not just what goes on in the service, but sometimes when the service is can be kind of a hurdle for some people. And it can be especially a hurdle for kids. Take a look if you would. How many people brought one of these guys to church this morning? Right? But I have to be at the early service. All right? Some churches have multiple services. They have a service at 8, maybe one at 9:30, then they do one at 11. Maybe they have one at, at 8 and 10. They do it all the time, and you know what, man? You're just bringing those little rugrats along, and they're not happy about it. They're not happy. They're just all befuddled and put together. What in the world is that all about? It's not just kids, though. Sometimes adults struggle with the whole issue of time. Now, here's a young lady making sure that you know, hey, if you're getting up on Monday morning and you can get to work on Monday to Friday on time, then you know what? Don't tell me church starts too early in the morning when you can get to work on time every day. Sometimes we struggle with the time. It used to be that all the church services that you could go to years and years ago started at 11 o'clock. America was a much more agrarian country at that point. There was a lot more going on in the morning that needed to be handled on your farm or in your business or whatever. And so those things were handled early, and that gave you that break and then that time to show up at 11. But we don't live, in some sense, in that kind of America anymore. So many churches have moved their services to different times, and sometimes those services are really early, and people are shaking their head. They're like, oh, my stars, are you kidding me? Sunday's the one day I get to sleep in. Isn't that the one day I get to sleep in? Because Saturday I got to take care of all the stuff I can't do Monday to Friday, and then it's Sunday, and then it's like another thing to do, and I can't sleep in. I got to worry about the alarm clock going off and being there. You get to church on time during the week. She says, no, we get to church on time. But my favorite is this, and I don't think there's one of these around here, and it's Chick-fil-A. How many of you have been to a Chick-fil-A? Loving me some Chick-fil-A. That's some good stuff. But Chick-fil-A says this, you know what, we're not open on Sunday, but on Sunday, what do? Go to church. On Saturday, we're open at 11:30 to 2 and 9 to 5, but on Sunday, go to church. And here's the good thing about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is like manna in the Old Testament. You know, the people of Israel, they collected, and then they couldn't collect on the Sabbath. Couldn't collect. So that manna got used in a special way, so that would last an extra day. Otherwise, the manna just was no good. They could only collect what we need. So here's the deal. You can go to Chick-fil-A, and somehow the Lord works, and that stuff is still good the next day. And so even though Chick-fil-A is closed, you can get your Chick-fil-A on Saturday, and you can enjoy it just like manna on Sunday, because it's good eats. What about church for you? Why is church a struggle? Is church a struggle for you? Statistics tell us a number of things. Let me share some stats with you, if I may. More than 40% of people claim to attend weekly church services. So as this group did this survey, 40% of the people they spoke to said they go to weekly church services. But the research has indicated that less than 20% actually go to a weekly service. Another stat, 27% of millennials, you know this millennial, you heard that term? Millennials. What are these people? Who are they? Very mysterious. Basically, millennials are those that fall in the 20 to early 30 kind of age group. And in looking at that millennial age group, they attend religious services on a weekly basis. 27% say that they do. Between 2007 and 2014, there was a 3.7% decline in the number of people who attended services weekly. But the population of America in those years bumped up by nearly 20 million people. So while we have more people in America, we have less people attending church. How many of you perhaps either were this person or have this person? There seems to be, in looking at churches and how churches function and how people function, it seems that at about the age of 18, when you're a young person, and I have two of them, I have a daughter who will soon be 18 actually, within the next year. About 18, they go away to college. If you would, they start to feel their oats. You know, start to kind of experiment with life and making their own. They're talking about their own decisions. They experience a measure of freedom. And then all of a sudden they find, you know what, church just isn't doing it for me anymore. Somehow there isn't this connection. And they kind of walk away from the church, and they aren't there on Sundays. When they go away to college, many times they don't go to church. When they're away at college, they may attend a Bible study or a campus group, but connection to a body of Christ, to a church, kind of falls away. It used to be that many of those young people who experienced that or went that direction eventually found their way back. And maybe you're here today and you say, you know what, when I was that age, we thought, I did my own thing for a little while. But when I got married and when I had my own kids, I saw a value in coming back and the importance of church. And now I'm back. Or perhaps you're a single and you said, I just knew it was just right for me to come back to church, go to church. Right. Today, fewer and fewer people make their way back when they go, if you would, and explore. When they take that gap. Today, the figure is somewhere in the area of about 13 to 15% actually make it back to the church. That's right. So we've got fewer people going to church, we've got fewer people who leave the church and come back to the church, and we've got a population that is growing, even as we speak. And so the question is, if you look around you, you see a lot of empty seats. Is it important for me to go to church? And what in the world is happening in our country and in our culture that these seats aren't filled? You could probably look around this morning, and I'm not going to, I have a little freedom to do some of this because you're not going to see me next week. But you probably look around, and we kind of call these, in terms of studying church, these are the ghosts in the pew. These are the people that you look around and you look at the seat, and there's kind of that image there, that person there, but they're not really there. The ghost in the pew. Where's that person? Where's that person this morning? Where have they been for the last couple of weeks? The importance of church attendance. So why is this getting so much attention? It's getting this attention because this trend that I'm talking about this morning is a trend that's not going away. In fact, if anything, it is a trend that will continue to grow and that churches will ultimately have to come to deal with. And not only churches, but individuals. You have a choice to make with regard to whether or not you will be here on Sunday morning. And when that slide shows up there and says, "Welcome to Seneca Community Church. We are so glad you've chosen to be with us this morning," that's no joke. Because you made a choice to be here today. A lot of different factors played into that choice, but you made a choice. You made a choice to join us today. Well, let's look at a couple things this morning to kind of unpack this and study this a little bit. I want to encourage you to take out your message guide and use your message guide this morning. Follow along if you would. There's some blanks there for you to use, and I encourage you to fill in the blanks and kind of carry that away with you, and use that to reflect this week on the back of the message guide. As normal, Dave and I both use message guides. It's not something that is like, oh, you have to do a message guide. No, we both, when we preach and speak, we use message guides, and so I encourage you to use the area, particularly on the back, to explore this a little bit more this week as you spend time with the Lord. It is important stuff to put into your mind and to think through, because the question is being asked. The issue is, what is the answer? What is the answer, and why are these things happening? So let me encourage you. So the first question we're going to look at is this morning, and that's first, why Christians? Why, and in a larger sense, perhaps even, why is it that people don't go to church? Why? And so follow along, if you would, with me. Even committed attenders are finding it hard, and you're seeing even those committed, stalwart, foundation, pillar people, you don't see them as often as you used to. And so what is going on here? Well, Terry Newhoff, who is a pastor at Connexus Church in Canada, he is also a blogger. He does a lot of study with regard to church culture and what's going on in the church and how culture is changing and impacting the church. He suggested in an article a number of reasons, and I think they're great reasons, why I shouldn't say they're great reasons. I don't think they're good reasons. I should say they are accurate reasons why people are no longer attending church the way they used to. And so let's take a look at them really quick. The first is this, is that we live in a time of greater affluence. Greater affluence. Now you may say to yourself, I'm going to tell you, if you see my wallet, there's no more money in my wallet today than there was 2 years ago or 5 years ago. Perhaps for you that's true, but in terms of the general population, we are in a time of greater affluence. People have more disposable income. They have, and income gives people options. You have more options when you have more money. And so they have travel options, they have technology options, they have a number of different choices that now enter their realm that they didn't have before. And so they have options for their kids. They have now, if you would, more disposable income to do things with their kids. And so this affluence has affected the way that people use their time, particularly their Sunday morning time. Second, let me suggest this, that there's a greater focus on kids' activities. My kids grew up, all of them, playing sports. In fact, my family isn't here along with me. My daughter had surgery last week. She broke a foot playing volleyball. And so she's off her feet for 6 weeks. And we live in a day and age where we encourage our children to be involved in sports, to be involved in extracurricular activities. And many times these involve not just issues or things that go on at the school level, but also outside of the school level. Both of my boys were school sports people, and my son and middle son played on traveling soccer. We would be traveling to Pennsylvania. I'm from New Jersey. I don't think you mentioned that, did you? Maybe you could tell from my accent. I don't know. But
thought I'd keep that a secret.
Yeah, they'll let them figure it out themselves. But yeah, we would travel over to Pennsylvania. We would have to travel down up to New York State. We'd be over down to Maryland and this and that. We were all over the place doing this soccer thing. Every weekend there was something. And finally, as a family, we just drew the line and we said, you know what? We will do this, and if you want them on the team, we're fine with that. But we will be in church on Sunday morning. We'll be in church Sunday morning. And so he is not available to play Sunday morning. But we can get there for the games in the afternoon. But today we're living in a day where there's a greater focus on kids activities. Your kids, many times when they get out of school, they're off to their next thing, or a music lesson, or a sports event, or they're going to a special this, or they're involved in some type of a club, or some other type of thing. Just so much going on. And when those things are going on, what happens then is that there's just so much time. And it eats away. And many times it eats away at the Sunday experience, at the worship experience. Let me suggest this also, number 3, more travel. People are traveling more. People are driving more, people are flying more, there's just a whole lot more travel going on. And so that being the case, well, travel's on the rise. With the affluence comes the ability to travel. And so a lot of people are just going away. They're going camping, they're going to a friend's place, they're away for the weekend, they're here, they're there, they're everywhere when they get that opportunity. And when people are out of town, they just tend to not be in church. Let me just say this is an aside. If you go on vacation, okay, that doesn't mean you take a vacation from church. Let me encourage you to find a place to worship where you're going away. Let me tell you, some of the neatest experiences that I have personally had spiritually have been because I've chosen to go to a place different from what I would normally be at, or as a pastor, what I would normally be. And I've heard a message by someone I didn't even know. Some of the very best speakers that you could ever hear are not in churches of 10 to 15,000 people or better. They are in churches just like ours, just like yours, with guys that are just passionate about God's Word, and they bless us each and every Sunday. And if you don't take the opportunity when you're away on vacation, you're missing something. You're missing something. But vacation, people out of town, when they're out of town, they cannot go to church. Again, number 4, blended and single-parent family issues. There's a lot going on in the family in America. Blended and single-family parent issues. And so in those families, you've got individuals who are in one place one weekend, one place another weekend, and these blended families, these single-parent families, they face transportation issues, they face, perhaps as the Kids Zone program goes on right now, even as we're meeting in here, There are some kids who may be there only 26 out of 52 weeks of the year. Because every other weekend, they're with the mother or they're with the father. And that impacts your church attendance. And it's sad to say, but that's part of our culture. And it's going on all around us. Number 5, there's online options. How many of you access Seneca's website on a regular basis in any way to listen to a message again, download notes, find out what the schedule is, look at the calendar, do all those kinds of things? You can go to church, literally, go to church, quote unquote, literally anywhere in the world through your computer. And so online options give the opportunity for you to experience and go to worship events and stuff in any place. But it doesn't put you physically together with the body of Christ. And so these online options really are wonderful to have, but it doesn't make the issue go away. It doesn't make the issue go away. Here's what is number 6. There's a cultural disappearance of guilt. In our world today, and we're talking specifically about attending church this morning, but with regard to most anything, there's just a disappearance about people feeling guilty about much of anything. Have you noticed that? Listen to the news and the things that go on in the news and the things that people are arrested for and the things that people do. Listen to the way that people talk, people who aren't arrested but just live life. And there's very little guilt for anything that grieves the heart of God. People just are not tuned in to morality. They're not tuned into spirituality. And many of us who would claim to be Christians find ourselves even believers. It's just kind of not feeling that guilty. Or feeling like something's out of whack that's just not the way it should be. There's a disappearance, if you would, of guilt. When I grew up, if I wasn't in church on Sunday, I'm going to tell you, I don't care. I'm 52. I'm the old man in our friendship here. I'm the old man. But if I wasn't in church, and I didn't grow up in a Christian family, if I wasn't in church on Sunday, I felt guilty. I felt like I missed something. I felt like what? I've got to wait another week? My hope, and it's my prayer, and I would say this is Dave's prayer, that during the week you develop such hunger and such desire to be together on Sunday morning that you just can't wait to get here. That you come around here at 9:59 and slide in and but that you can't wait to get here so bad that you get here early and you enjoy the time with people. But most people don't feel guilty about anything, much less the idea of not being in church any longer. Go on. Self-directed spirituality. A lot of us are into self-help books. The internet has opened all kinds of worlds of connection for us to specialists and professionals. And there's so many different options and so many different resources available online that we find it very easy for us to just kind of do our own spiritual thing. And the access to these kinds of resources just make it very easy for us to say, I'm doing my own thing. And I really find the messages from Pastor whoever at whatever church, I find them really, and so I'm kind of doing my own thing. Myself, for better or for worse, those things are out there and they still draw people away from the church. Sometimes we self-direct it because we just don't like church. We've had that experience at church. Sometimes we don't feel church is relational. We don't feel it's comfortable. We don't feel there's a sense of community or connectedness there. And so, we kind of pull away. Self-directed. Sometimes we don't see the benefit of it. We don't see the benefit. And that's really a question that people like Dave and I have to ask ourselves. Are we working with our leadership to put together a package of ministry that meets the needs of the people that God has given to us and helps them fulfill the mission and the vision that God has given us? And sometimes people come to church, but they kind of become less connected because they just don't see the benefit. It's good, but it's not really getting me anywhere. It's, they just don't see the benefit. It's funny, how many people will say, man, that's my church, or I love my church, or whatever. And those same people are people who, over time, see they don't come. And they love the church, but with all the things that compete in their lives, they just don't see the benefit. They just don't see the benefit of it. And that's tough. Some people, this is number 9, they value attendance versus engagement. Attendance versus engagement. What do I mean by that? There are a lot of people who love to attend church and love to go to church. They love to do the church thing, but they're not engaged. They're not involved in a small group. They're not involved in a ministry in some way. They're not serving in some way. And so what we found out and what things have shown us is that people who attend tend to be people who kind of back away and find church attendance to be something that's optional, versus the person who's truly engaged and has, if you would, laid down a foundation, laid down roots, and really has seen the church experience as something that is helpful to them. Now, this guy, Kerry, he shares all of his thoughts. And then he shares a thought, which I have included. I pulled it out because I wanted to separate it out because I think it's the linchpin, it's the key here. And he says this, he says there is a massive culture shift going on. Now, all of the things that you've seen, or that I just told you, are things that are symptomatic of what's going on in our culture. Blended single-parent families, people self-directing their spirituality. Our culture doesn't see a benefit in coming together and being church. People's schedules are just too packed. People have more money, they're more affluent. All of these things are symptoms, I would say, of what's going on, this massive culture shift. But one of the things that in this particular information I was looking at doesn't happen is this guy doesn't say, so what is, these are all symptoms, what is the issue? What's the issue? What's the backdrop? So I want to share with you what I think is the backdrop to all of this. What do I think is the, not the symptom, what do I think is the illness? Okay? And this is my own stuff, and it's individualism. It's individualism. It's self. It's me. It's my heart of hearts. The massive cultural shift is that we're living in a day, in an age, where we have embraced rugged individualism, where we have moved away from the biblical value of community and relationship, where we believe, my buddy Dave here, he is an Apple man. I think you know Dave is the Apple man. All right? And I'm not talking the fruit, I'm talking the technology, he's the Apple man. We live in the I generation. I'm not talking iPads and iPods. It is the I generation because everything we do focuses on me. It's all about me. It's what's best for me. It's what's going to make me feel better. It's what gives me the greatest enjoyment. It's about me. Whether you are young or old, I think this is true. Whether you are affluent or not affluent in your own life, it's true. What I do is largely about me and the choices that I make. Now, what do I mean by individualism? What do I mean by that? Let me give you a definition just so you understand what I'm saying. It means that I can define who I am and what I will do at any time that I want. That I can change my definition of life and the things of life any time that I want. Because it's all about me. Do you see that as the world we live in? That's what I want. And the culture cultural shift that's happening is a shift, and what's happening in the church is a shift that's kind of moved in. It's kind of like, it's an illness, if you will, a heart illness that's moved in. Let me give you an example of this individualism. Some of you are on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I use Facebook to kind of connect with people, just keep up with people. I'm not profusely on Facebook. I don't have time for that. I can't keep up with the people that I actually see, much less people I haven't seen for 40 years. Facebook allows you to tell Facebook and to reveal to others things about yourself. One of the areas that we see developing this unique individualism in our culture is the area of gender. It used to be that there were just two pronouns that were used to describe people. You used to be he or she, him or her. But we live in a world today where individualism has pushed us to the place where on Facebook, you can take this one way or another, there's some different figures, but Facebook gives you the option of 56 different gender possibilities. 56. Let me share a couple with you. This is individualism. What's going on? The first is you can list yourself as agender or agender, which means they don't identify with any gender at all. You're gender fluid, which means you're kind of in between. You're free to express both your masculine and your feminine side. You're pangender. It's kind of a third gender that you believe you have a little bit of both. And this is an expression of our individualism. There's gender questioning. I'm just not quite sure. And so I am gender questioning. Now, previous generations, this wouldn't make any sense. Like, your grandmas and grandpas and stuff like that, what in the world are you guys doing? But in the midst of the society that we live in, the culture that we live in, where I can do what I want, and I can choose what I want, and I can define things the way I want, it's very wrong. And the same type of thinking and influence has entered the church with regard to whether or not I even go, and whether or not it has any value to me. Well, as we think about this, and we go through this individualism, what it puts to the side is the issue of community. It puts aside the need for relationship. This issue of individualism has been a part of America for forever. You know, we've always been a country that says, you know, what do? We pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and we make our way, we do our thing, because we're Americans. That's we're Americans. We all have a little John Wayne in us, you know? You know who John Wayne is, right? I'm tough, you know, I'm tough, I'm gonna make it, and I can do this. I can work hard enough, I can persist long enough, I can be tough enough, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. But that idea, this morning, let me tell you, is completely foreign to the things of Scripture. Completely foreign. And that while there are certain things that you have to do yourself, that God has given for you to do, there is a beautiful part of being a believer and being a part of the body of Christ that knits us together in a very special way that we call community, we call fellowship, we call being brothers and sisters in Christ. And it's something that we cannot let go of because it is a part of the DNA, the spiritual DNA of who we are as Christ followers. So what I want you to find today is this truth. It's today's transforming truth, and it's very simply this, that if you want to be countercultural, you need to go to church. If you want to stand out from culture, if you want to be different, if you don't want to go with the flow, if you don't want to live with the illness, I will call it an illness if the others are symptoms, with the illness, the spiritual illness of individualism, then you need to go to church. that we behavior as often as possible under the teaching of God's Word as often as possible, rubbing shoulders and touching lives with the people that God has led to this place here. If you could be countercultural, then you need to be a church. Because the world is telling you, and culture is telling you, you don't need this. You don't need this. It's not valuable. But God tells us it is valuable. And it's important. So let's take a second and look at Scripture. I want you to look at Hebrews 10 this morning with me. And in Hebrews 10, if you're using a P Bible or a chair Bible, whatever you want to call it, it's there for you to use. It's on page 843. We're looking at Hebrews 10. I want us to look briefly at verses 19 to 25. And in this particular passage of Scripture, Hebrews 10, Paul is talking to these Hebrew believers. And it's really part of a larger discussion as he's sharing it, and as he talks with them. And as he has this discussion with them, he's trying to help them understand how to live the Christian life. How do I bring my behavior in line with my belief? How does doctrine and the teachings of Jesus and what God has done and our understanding of that, how does that affect what I do? Paul writes like this typically. The book of Ephesians and many of his letters have this early emphasis on teaching and doctrine and what God has done, the work of God, and then he connects it to the walk that the believer is supposed to have. And so here in Hebrews chapter 10, he's trying to get these individuals to understand some things about how they're supposed to live. What is important about how they're supposed to be. And so Hebrews 10 here, he begins in verse 19, and he begins with this word, therefore. And so, therefore, in light of all the things I've told you, in light of all this wonderful things that God has done, in light of that work, therefore, how do we walk? In light of what you believe, how then are you to behave? Therefore, he says, and it signals going in this new direction, he says, therefore, there are these two big truths that kind of frame this. And it's on the screen there for you. It says, therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is his body. So the first truth he shares, these two framing truths, if you will. First thing he shares is, you know what? We have confidence to go into the holy place. The whole purpose and much of what he shares before this place is addressing the Hebrews and having them come into grips and having them come to grips with what Jesus did and how it is a fulfillment of what they have been doing for the last centuries. That there was in the temple this place called the Holy of Holies. And that this Holy of Holies was only entered once a year by the high priest. And it was there that the high priest offered a sacrifice for the forgiveness to cover the sins of the people once a year. And if he was to go in there unprepared, if he had not offered a sacrifice for himself before going in there, he'd be struck dead. In fact, tradition tells us that they would tie a rope to the high priest who went in there, so that if it should be that something went wrong, they could drag the body out of there, because no one would go in there, because they were entering the very presence of God. And here he says, be mindful and understand. We have confidence to go into the place that no one has been able to go to before. We've been able now, because of what Jesus did, because of the blood of Jesus, because of the sacrifice he made on our behalf, because of him going to the cross, we are now able to enter the very presence of God. He says, we don't have to have one person go for us. Now, because of what Jesus did, we can ourselves approach God and enter into his presence. We so often, as we remember Easter, we talk about the curtain that separated that very special place. And how that curtain was rent, it was torn from the top to the bottom. Symbolizing that God was the one doing the work, not us. It wasn't from the bottom to the top, it was from the the top to the bottom. And so Paul says here, he says, listen, you have confidence because of what Jesus did to be in the presence of God. What an incredible privilege. I could stop right there. Do you understand the privilege that is yours in Christ to be in the presence of God? And you might say, well, I can do that at home. Yeah. But there is something very special. And we're going to see that when people who enjoy and have the freedom to be in the presence of God come together to be in the presence of God. So he says, first, he says, you can be in God's presence. You can enter the Holy of Holies because of what Jesus did. You can meet with God. It's the second thing, verse 21. He says, and since we have a great high priest over the house of God, that Jesus, he himself, serves as our high priest. He offered himself. His sacrifice serves as the one who he ushers us into that presence. Sometimes I check Twitter. Some of you may be Twitter people. And I try to follow people who retweet great quotes from other people. It saves a whole lot of research when somebody has the research for you. But this week I was thinking about what I was going to share with you this morning, and I saw this quote and I thought it was fabulous. This is from Paul David Tripp. He is a professor. He does a lot of work with theology and counseling in Philadelphia. And I believe he still works with the counseling center there through Westminster Seminary. But this is what he says: the purpose of the cross, the purpose of Jesus shedding his blood, the purpose of what Jesus did, is to completely decimate your loyalty to the most seductive, powerful, destructive of all idols, the idol of self. That Jesus came, and what he did on the cross was to destroy your loyalty, to give you freedom from the most destructive of all influences, self. When I read that, I was like, maybe individualism, maybe self, maybe that really is the honest. It seems that he thinks so. But he focuses on it's what Jesus did and what he made available to you. What he did. So Paul says, you know what, as we think about bringing our belief in line with our behavior, as we think about coming together and being the body of Christ and attending church, he says, understand what an incredible privilege it is and what an amazing, a huge price was paid for you to be able to have the ability to come into the presence of God. Do not forget what Jesus did and how he is your great high priest and makes it possible for you to come into the presence of the living God. So, when he lays that groundwork, he says this. And by that, he says, we have been made holy through the sacrifice of the body of Christ once for all. Day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties again and again and offers the same sacrifice, which can never take away sin. It can't, it just covers the sin. But when this priest had offered for all one sacrifice for sin, this priest being Jesus, he sat down at the right hand of God, and since that time he waits for his enemies to be made his footstool. For by one sacrifice he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. What Jesus did for us is amazing. And it opens up the very pathway to a relationship and being in the presence of God. So, hearing that, and what Jesus did, why do we come to church? What is the benefit? What's the benefit? Why should a Christian go to church? Well, in light of having a relationship with Jesus and in light of what Jesus did, we come to church to do three things. And these are three important things. And these are three things that I think should be a blessing to you. What is our response to salvation? What is our response to what Jesus did? These are three let us things, not let us as in green thing, but let's. Let us. In light of this, let us. And the first he says is this: let us worship together. In light of the truth of what Jesus did, let us now worship together. Let us worship together. He says this, verse 22, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart, with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. He says for us, let us draw near. Draw near to his presence. Let us enter into his presence. You can't enter his presence sinful. You can't do that because God's holy. And so, washed in the blood, cleansed in the blood, in that relationship that I have with Jesus, I can come and enter the presence of God. Because of Jesus, I draw near. And I do that with a sincere heart. A sincere heart. I do that, he's saying here, with good motives. Have you ever done something and then kind of scratched your head and wondered, well, did I really do that for the right reason? Was that a good thing? Why did I do that? Let me ask you this. Why are you here today? What's your motive? What's your motive? Some of us, on any given Sunday, we come to church because we expect God to give us something. We expect something from him. God, I've done my part, so now you do your part. In the Latin of it, it's quid pro quo. I'll do a little for you, and do a little for me. And we have this spiritual barter that goes on. When I come to church, I've done for you, now God, as I go out there, what you do for me. I will suggest to you that's a stinky word. That the reason I come to church is not to get. But the larger reason for me to come to church is to give. Is to give God the glory that is due his name. To acknowledge his work in my life. To thank him for the ways that he has blessed me. For the ways that he has watched over me. I come to church, he says, come with a sincere heart. Come with the right motive before God. And do it with full assurance of faith. There's something that's affirming about being together with other believers and worshiping that just says, you know what? This is right. This is good. I like this. It meets me in my heart of hearts. How terrible it must have been for Adam and Eve to be kicked out of the garden and to not be able to walk with God any longer in the cool of the day. Can you imagine what it would be like to be able to walk with God every day? If God would show up in the afternoon and just kind of take a little jaunt around with him, you know, kind of smell the flowers and stuff. How terrible it must have been for Adam and Eve to not have the privilege, the great pleasure of being in God's presence and to have that relationship like they did before. There's something very special about being in the body of Christ and meeting together, meeting with God. And it assures, it gives us an assurance of our faith. It speaks to us in our hearts. He says here, draw near, let us worship together. Let's meet God together. We're cleansed because of what Jesus did. And our response is to draw near, to take advantage of that. Well, my dad was passed away in 2003. And he was a rugged individualist. He was a John Wayne bootstrap. He was a Cuban immigrant. And in doing that, he just really was kind of a lone ranger. Because he had to make his way here himself. He couldn't speak English. He couldn't bring anything with him. And every once in a while we would do stuff together. My dad, if he could put his temper aside, would allow us to help him with projects. But sometimes he would reach a place where he would realize, you know what, I can't do this on my own. And so he would say, I could use an extra set of hands. And that was his way of saying, you know what, I need a little help. I could do this on my own, but it might be nice to have a little help. Some of us view church like, I need an extra set of hands kind of place. Some of us view church that way. That's kind of where I go when I can't do it on my own. where I go and I get the extra help when I can't make it myself. And we need to realize that this is just not like our help place, but this is our draw near to God place. And there's something important and wonderful about that community. So he says, let's worship, draw near to God. Second, he says this, let us study together. We need to study together. And so it's not just about worship, it's about us learning together. Verse 23 says this, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. So we hold on to the truthfulness of what we believe, we embrace and we hold on to the doctrine and the teachings and the things that we understand from God's word about who he is. We get together and we study the word. The only way for us to hold unswervingly is to study the word. It's interesting. We don't often, as pastors, some of these like really deep theological questions, we never get asked. It's like that's the stuff we learned in school, and that's the stuff we had to learn for our ordination or our licensing or whatever. But in 25 years or 28 years or whatever, there are some questions I've never been asked. And I think about those questions, and I'm wondering if somebody was to ask me that question today, I might have no clue exactly what to say. And that's not because I'm dumb. It's because it's not something that I've rehearsed and I go back to all the time. And here he says, let us hold unswervingly, let us continue to embrace and drink in and to study the things of God's word together. He says those things are important. He says it's important for us because if we're going to be unswerving, we need to know what we believe. We need to have that foundation laid. We live in a crazy world. And we look at the world and we think the world's crazy. The world looks at us and says, you guys definitely are crazy. I mean, think about what a Christian believes. A Christian believes that there is a God. A God that created everything around us. A God that created human beings distinct in his image. That Christians believe that those wonderful creations of God, people, walked with God for a time in a garden of paradise, but chose to go their own way and to walk away, fell into sin, and now are estranged from God relationally. But that God loved them enough to send his own son, his perfect son, and sent him as a baby. Isn't that crazy? And that this little baby grew up and lived approximately 30 years working in his father's trade as a carpenter, learning the culture and learning the people, and stepped out into ministry to become, in some people's view, a wonderful rabbi, in other people's view, a magician or some kind of sorcerer, in our view, a miracle-working, living representation, the very inflection of God. And we believe that kind of stuff. And that he died on the cross. And that he paid the price for our separation from God, because Scripture reminds us the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus. Now the world hears that and says, you guys are nuts. If we're to go the distance, we need to be together to study the truths of God so that we can have that unswerving faith. So that we can have a faith that manages when the world says, you're nuts. Are you kidding me? We worship together. We study together. And then finally, we do this. We grow together. We grow together. So we worship, we study, and we grow. You see, the Christian life is not just about us coming together in God's presence to worship, draw near, or to learn the truths of God so we can have that unswerving faith. But it's also about the journey. It's about us growing together. He says this, verse 24, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. The Christian life is not to be lived alone. We're not to worship alone, although we can. We're not to study alone, although we can. But we can't grow alone. Let us consider how we spur one another on to these things. But considering, have you considered this week how you can encourage someone who's a brother or sister in Christ? Have you thought about that? How can I help someone else who may need encouragement? Or just a smile brought to their face. Going to church does that. It's for worship, it's for study, and it's for growing, and that encouragement. It's important. It reminds us that we're together. 1 Corinthians 12, Paul talks about it this way. He uses the picture of the body, how Christians are a body. Can you imagine if you came here today and you left your arm at home? I'm sorry, I forgot my arm. I left my ears. I forgot my ears at home today. He says this, he says, the eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. The head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. 1 Corinthians 12, he says, on the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. No one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Paul says we're like a body. He says we're fit together, we're joined together in a very special way. Some of us are hands and some of us are feet. Some of us are eyes and some of us are ears. It would be very normal for the hand to say this, hey, you know what, I wish that ear would get up and grab something. Or for the foot to say, hey, I wish that, I wish that ear would get busy and get us somewhere. Imagine walking on your ear. Everyone has a role, everyone has a place, and when one is not working, when one's not pulling, it suffers, the whole body suffers, he says. We don't all function the same, but we're all valuable, we're all important. And when you're not here, Seneca suffers. Seneca suffers. When you're not serving and engaging, Seneca suffers. There's an encouragement that comes just, if we had 15 people here and we just had these 2 or 3 rows, we could worship, but you know what? How wonderful it is when the gaps are filled in and the people are encouraged and ministry happens and we draw near to God and we study together and we figure out how to consider spurring each other on to love and good deeds and loving. When that goes on, growth happens. It's good. It's good. Let me close with this. It's interesting, I was noticing some signs and I don't understand exactly what's going on in your area here with regard to this Indian reservation and the Cayuga Indians and this. But I can remember when I was a kid, I studied the Iroquois Indians. And the Iroquois did something very interesting with regard to how they planted their crops. And the way they did it was they did something, they called them the Three Sisters. The Three Sisters. And you might, they sent their little young girls out there to do some job. Three Sisters are actually 3 different crops. It's corn, beans, and squash. And what they had learned was that these 3 crops relate well together when planted together. That the corn provides shade, that the beans provide stability for the stalk, the squash are low and the roots are not deep but they spread out, so it helps with the moisture, it helps with the beans put nitrogen back into the soil. And so put these 3 things together and something wonderful happens. I mention that to you today because God has given us 3 unique callings, yes, that are built upon the wonderful gift of Jesus that renews our relationship with our Heavenly Father. And when we put those three things together and get them operating, when we get together and we draw near, when we get together and we study, when we get together and we grow together and spur each other on and encourage one another, great things happen. Great things happen not only in your life, but in the life of the church. You want to continue down the individual way? Okay. But I can tell you that it's a direction that doesn't please God. Because that's not how He designed things and wants things to operate. He doesn't want us to be individuals. He wants us to be a community. And He wants us to be a community where these three sisters operate powerfully. Do I have to go to church? Yeah. Will I be there every week? Well, perhaps sometimes you may not be there every week. But you ought to be here as much as possible. Because if not, you're missing out. And your brothers and sisters are missing out on the incredible blessing it is to be a child of God. Maybe you're here today. And there's a couple different groups. Maybe you're here today and you're here every Sunday. You're every Sunday. Let me ask you this. If you're here every Sunday, then you probably are drawing near, you're worshiping, and you probably are doing the study thing. Let me ask you this. Are you here every Sunday and are you thinking how you can be a blessing to somebody else? How you can give as well as receive? Maybe you're here and you're only here sporadically, but you're here pretty regularly. Can I ask you to consider what are the things that are keeping you from being here more often? And are those things that you would feel good about? If the Lord was to confront you with them and say, what about this? The old thing is that it's better to be out on the golf course thinking about God than to be in church thinking about golf. Can I ask you to maybe do a little soul searching? Some of you are here today and probably maybe you don't want to be here. And there's maybe two reasons for that. First, maybe you're here today and you don't know Christ. Can I tell you today that He wants to know you? He does know you. But He wants to have a relationship with you in a way that you've never had one with Him before. And like Paul said, He was willing to go to the cross to make it possible for you to enter the very presence of God and to repair that relationship. We're going to celebrate that at the table. What we did. And if you're here today and you've never embraced Christ as your Savior, let me encourage you to do that. It's as simple as admitting and walking away from God that you're not where you should be, that you believe in what Jesus did, and that you're choosing to follow Him with your life. Love to talk about that stage with somebody in the worship team. Or perhaps you're here today and you're drugged. And I don't mean you're an addict. Some of you were drugged here, literally. You really had to choice your mind. Can I ask you to just give the Lord a chance to speak to your heart? Maybe in a fresh way. And say, you know what, I'm going to give church a chance. I'm going to trust God to do something maybe that He's never had before. But I'm going to be there because it gives Him a chance to do it. We are blessed this morning, Lord, to be in your presence. And we thank you so much for Jesus and what He makes possible for us. That we, as your children, are able to be in your presence, to worship you. That we are able to come to understand and to know your word in a deeper, fuller way, so that we may walk in a way that doesn't swerve but is straight on. And that God, you give us the opportunity to grow. To grow not only in the things of Jesus, but to grow as the body and to be connected together. Some of us are hands, some are feet, eyes, ears, noses. All of us are important. Unique roles. But when any one of us is missing, we're diminished. And
so, Lord, I pray and I ask that you might help us to grow together. Help us to marry these three sisters in a way perhaps that we never have before in our lives and in this church. Thank you for Seneca. May it be that, God, we would flourish personally and as a church because we know the importance of being together. Should I go to church? Absolutely. And thank you, God, for meeting us here today. In Jesus' name.